everyone. Thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. Hope you're having a wonderful day. So, today we're going to be talking about The Eye of the World, Book 1 in the Wheel of Time series. No, I have not seen the show yet. I wanted to read Book 1 first before I started to read the show. Before I started to watch the show. Sorry. But I have been told that there are numerous changes. So I guess we'll see if I like these changes or not. I know it's kind of like, maybe you will, maybe you won't. But anyway, we're talking about The Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. So this book was originally published January 15th in 1990. I want to say the 90s and 80s were kind of, for me, like the height of fantasy and, literature. I remember going to the bookstore as a kid and just that section just be just like enormous to me. Maybe that's just my memory of it because, I was a child. I was born in 1991. And as I got older, as I started to find my love of reading, I used to just, my mom used to go to that fantasy aisle because Dragonlance was there. And she's the one who got me to Dragonlance. We would just, pick out books and just plop down in the aisle and read. So that's what we would do. And of course, we always left with a book. We weren't just book squatters. We would leave with at least one book each. And I'm actually kind of shocked that I'd never read this book before. Interestingly enough, though, my Goodreads said I did read this book before, and I gave it 1 star back in 2013. I'm like, what the? I never, ever read this book before. I don't even own it. And it was just out of my library. I'm like, so why? Had to have been a glitch at some point. No, this is not a 1 star book. It took me some time to read it, with having 2 kids now. So I went back and forth between the audiobook version and reading this one. So when I was at work, or if I'm like running around chasing the kids, earbud in at night or in the morning when the kids are napping, physical book. So maybe that did kind of affect the way I absorbed the book, but it was really easy to transition and go back and forth between the two for me personally, because I would always leave off at the beginning of a chapter. I was never lost. I think that's my point here. That is my point. I didn't get lost going back and forth. There have been times when I've tried to do this technique before where it didn't work. It didn't work. I'd be like, well, what happened? Like, I wouldn't remember what had just happened from the audiobook, but I was able to remember. I think the reason being is because the story is you have to pay attention to it. It's like my brain just hardwired itself to pay attention to every word. I didn't get lost. I didn't lose what had just happened. It's very vivid. I think Jordan did a really good job with his world building here. I think he did an excellent job with setting up the tone and setting up the pacing, making sure that you're invested in these characters. If only I could pronounce half of their names. I do love the Wisdom. I think she's great. And I do love, I can't, Moraine. See, Moraine's name I can say. Very excited to see Rosamund Pike play her and bring her to life. But Moraine and the Wisdom, I think all the female characters, honestly, I can't pronounce her name. Egwene. That's how I remember it being pronounced in the audiobook. It's another reason why I like audiobooks sometimes, because if I don't know how to pronounce it, the audiobook would tell me, this is how you pronounce it. So, I think Jordan did it. Not Jordan, I just combined his name. Jordan. He did a good job of making sure that each female character was very strong, very different. They are all three different women, but they all have very similar strengths in their magic. They're very compelling, they're very forceful, they're very fierce. I think a lot of times in just literature in general, when you have a lot of female characters, they all tend to be alike. Too much, though, unfortunately, that they don't really just stand up and shine for themselves. And that's like all literature. That's not exclusive to fantasy or mystery or young adult. When there are a lot of female characters taking center stage, it's very hard to make sure that they're all very different and have different strengths and different feats. I think Jordan did a really good job in this because they all have at their cores, they all have magic. Sorry, my allergies. They all have magic at their core, and that's kind of what binds them. But they're just still very different. They're still very different and strong characters, and that's what I liked about them. Now, the same can go for the male characters as well. Rand and his friends, Perrin and Matt. See, I knew it was Matt, but I felt like Matt just seemed like such an ordinary boy. I'm like, no, it can't possibly be Matt. It has to be something like Mattis or something. No, it's Matt. I think they were all done very well as well. Now, here's one thing, or a couple things. The book is very tropey, and I don't think that that's the author's fault. Again, early 90s, we're seeing fantasy at its, kind of height. This one, I think, it's just been like decades since, it has been decades since now. So now the tropes are just kind of repetitive. But I still appreciated them. And here's why. You've got your first trope. The chosen one. Who is the chosen one? The farm boy. Who is the farm boy? Adopted. He's an adopted farm boy and he is the chosen one. Gee, where have I heard that before? Superman, Luke Skywalker, Eragon. Yes, Eragon comes out after this, but Luke Skywalker and Superman were before. So I'm a sucker for the whole farm boy trope. I even have that book, Let's Kill the Farm Boy by Kevin Hearn. It's on my shelf. I haven't read it yet, but I bought it specifically for that title. I'm a sucker for the farm boy chosen one trope. So for me, it wasn't a turn off. For me, it just it made me do what I'm doing now, laugh. Just laugh at the kind of the absurdity of that trope. And like, what is it about being a farm boy that means you're going to be the chosen one? So it fills me with this kind of sense of nostalgia. No, it didn't make me think of Clark Kent a lot. It made me think of Luke Skywalker. So that it's not a bad thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm just pointing out, as this is a review, it does exist within this novel. Again, early 1990s, this book was first published. I really do think it is a reflection of fantasy at that time. And at that time, I think we weren't really thinking of tropes. We were just focused on telling the story. But as readers, we become more aware of the tropes and the cliches and everything the more we read. Sometimes they tend to lose their charm. They didn't lose their charm here. I thought Jordan did a really good job with creating Rand, and he's just going through a lot of turmoil. He's like, no, 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 no. Like, nah, I'm just not the chosen one. I'm just a farm boy, and I'm gonna go back to my farm with my father, because he's my father. You know, I liked that about. He was a lot like Superman. I'm not gonna lie. But that's, you know, that's just the reality. Tropes exist, and I think we can forgive Jordan because this book was written so long ago. Oh my god, I'm saying mid-90s like it was just like ages ago. It's not ages ago. I'm only 30. I think it's okay. It's okay that the book is a little tropey. So our second trope is our band of heroes leave home and then inexplicably get separated. That's another trope with fantasies. You know, you have your band of heroes and you go, whoop, you all get separated. Again, I'm okay with that. And the reason being is we have such a large cast of characters. I don't think they would have shined as much or grown as much if they hadn't been separated. You can't just have the band of, let's see, Matt, Perrin, and I think 7. Hope I'm not missing anyone. Your band of 7 heroes, they all got separated. It would have been hard to devote so much time to each character and their development if they had all stuck together. Plus, there's lots of world building. I love this one when it comes to fantasy books. Constant world building. The reason being is I hate when there's just so much world building all at the beginning, because it's just like, can we just get on with the story already? Like, I just want to get on with the story. And that's another reason why I like the 2 prologues, because both prologues do give an indication of the history of this world, the history of these characters. And who they are. You know, how they exist in this world and how the world is constantly changing and turning around them. So, I think it's interesting that they decided to add a second prologue. It worked. It did work, don't get me wrong. It did work. And it really did build the momentum. You're intrigued, especially when you're thinking of, oh, the ravens are the eyes of the Dark One, right? What's with all these ravens? And then your mind kind of goes to mythology and ravens and Viking and for me, my mind went to Norse mythology and also Native American mythology. So ravens are prominent in both. So I think it was interesting for me to see kind of the influences of both and the life brought out in the ravens. If that makes any sense. I'm not making sense, am I? It was interesting. That's what I'm getting at. It was interesting to see how the ravens work within the narrative of this story, with the Dark One. And again, that's what prologue number 1 was about. So it's why that trope works. I know I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, but we're going back to the trope. The trope of our band of heroes separating. Because we get a sense of this world. We're getting a sense of the world and the history that was introduced to us little by little in each of the prologues. And I don't think the prologues would be as impactful if the band of heroes had just stuck together. Besides, who wants to read the story of our heroes just going on a quest all together? Like, no, you guys have to, like, it's a 14-book series. They're eventually going to have to diverge, reconnect. But they're changing every time they diverge. They're not the same people they were. Even in this novel, they are definitely not the same people they were in that first prologue as children. They are inexplicably so different. And I like that. I like when there's lots of character growth. So, on that note, I have to give this book 4 out of 5 stars. It is a little slow. It's not incredibly fast-paced, I will say that. But it's still very interesting. I really did enjoy it. I don't know whether or not you should read the book before watching the show or after. It might be more beneficial if you read the book after you watch the show, because I've heard that there are lots of differences. Both of my coworkers have different opinions on that. One says they make sense. The other one says if they had been in the book, they would have liked it more. But as it was, they weren't fans. So you can see where it's just kind of split there. I guess I'll see if I like the changes or not. We'll see. So 4 out of 5 stars. Given what my coworkers have said, please read the book after you watch the show. And let me know in the comments, what you thought. In any case, if you want to go ahead and purchase the book, if you haven't already read it, please purchase from your local bookseller or online book retailer. I just ask that you support your bookstores versus purchasing off of Amazon. And on that note, I hope you all will continue to support me by liking this video and sharing it with all your book-loving friends. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.